Hello, dear ones. Welcome to the Dream Lab, a safe, inspiring place for you and God to dream without limits what you most desire to be, do, and have in your life right now. Every episode, I hold space for you to be irreplaceably you, to explore your unique design and discover your dreams as a reflection of God's heart for the world around you. I am your host, your guide, your encourager-in-chief, Christina B. Come on in to the Dream Lab. Hello, hello. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Dream Lab podcast. In this episode of the Dream Lab, I'm going to share the Dream Lab's genesis, its origin story. Where did the Dream Lab start? How did it start? Why am I launching a podcast in 2025? And where are we going? It's going to be an adventure, that's for sure. It's been a very long road with lots of twists and turns. So, ladies and gentlemen, strap yourselves in. Keep your hands and arms inside the car at all times. All right, are you ready? Let's go. We have to go back in time a little bit. In 2004, 2005, I was just feeling drawn to the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time and working for the government. And for whatever reason, my heart was just captivated by the entertainment industry. And I began exploring it and actually doing a lot of praying and contemplating, like, could this be God drawing me to something that didn't seem to make sense at the time? Maybe in a later episode, I will share the entire story of my journey to get to Los Angeles, but because it's such a beautiful one. In 2006, I moved to Los Angeles and to work in the entertainment industry. I got on a one-way plane ticket, shipped my car, sold a bunch of my stuff, and just went. I just really felt like I was being called there. It wasn't a frivolous thing that, to pick up my entire life and move across the country. I didn't make that decision frivolously. In 2006, I found myself in a completely new environment. And thankfully, I had, really solid community at the beginning and just started to pursue what I felt like God was calling me to do there, which was learn about producing and how to tell really beautiful, redemptive stories in powerful ways. So around 2014 and 2015, I had been there for quite a while, and I just felt stuck. And I listened to a message from a conference. I can't remember what conference it was, but the person who was speaking suggested, hey, why don't you, if you're feeling stuck, like, pray, ask God to show you, what he's doing in your life right now, and maybe ask some questions. If you're not sure what you need to do next, just start journaling the answers to some questions. And he just tossed out, I don't know, half a dozen basic questions like, what are your favorite things? What do you enjoy doing? How do you spend your time? What are you really good at? What subjects did you enjoy in school as a young person, and what subjects do you enjoy now? What problems in the world frustrate you? Like, these are the kinds of questions that he suggested journaling the answers to. So I wrote down those questions, and then I added a bunch of my own, and I journaled and journaled and journaled. I journaled like crazy. And then I called my mom and I said, hey, can you shed some light on what it was like to be my mom? What did I like? What toys did I play with? What entertained me the most when I was young? Was there something I was really good at? And she kind of laughed. She was so sweet. And she said, oh my goodness. She said, you were an easy to entertain kid. She said, but you were not the kid who could sit and color for 3 hours at a time. She said, you liked to have many activities to choose from, and you liked to switch between those activities often. And this was a revelation for me. Like, oh my goodness. I thought, oh, so much of my adult life makes sense now, because when I get into jobs, that once I learn the job and start to master some of those tasks, I'm ready for something new. So anyway, that was a really interesting and sweet conversation with my mom where I learned some insight about me and about me needing a variety of tasks and challenges to stay engaged. As I journaled the answers to all of these questions and had a few conversations with my mom, I started noticing a couple of things. I looked back over my answers and I read them multiple times, and I noticed a few themes, three patterns that really emerged from all of my answers. And one was I enjoy creating things, something out of nothing, whether that was baking a cake or some cookies, like thinking of I want to bake something. So it starts as an idea in my head and then assembling the ingredients, making the dough or for whatever it is, and then making a cake or some cookies. I have vivid and beautiful memories of being in the kitchen with my mom and my grandmother, baking, canning jelly and tomatoes. And to this day, I love to bake and try new recipes. I also liked arts and crafts projects. Nothing fancy, but even at school, I loved when we made stuff. And I still have many of the things that I made in grade school because my sweet mother saved all those things. The second theme that emerged from my journal entries was I enjoyed physical activity a lot, way more than I realized. Summer, especially, was spent outside. Of course, I'm a Gen Xer, so as you can tell from a lot of the Gen X comedic clips that are floating around right now, we had to be outside. Like parents and back in those days, they believed that kids should be outside enjoying being in nature and playing and doing all those sorts of things. So, of course, at that time, we didn't have smartphones and we didn't have video games. So it was a little bit easier. But I loved being outside. I enjoyed physical activity. And we ran around the neighborhood during the summer. We played four squares. We went swimming, badminton, anyone who would play badminton with me, my grandmother, neighbors. I actually enjoyed playing badminton with my grandmother the most because she was actually pretty good at it. We rode bikes for hours and hours and hours. We played hide and go seek until dark, double dutch jump rope, you name it. If it was physical and outside, we did it. We had a playground near my childhood home that had monkey bars and swing sets and all that kind of stuff. So that was the second theme that emerged from my journaling. So the third theme that emerged from my journaling was family and friends. I loved doing things with others. I loved doing the first two things with others, whether it was something physical or creating something. I enjoyed doing that as part of a larger community. I have such fond childhood memories of being in the kitchen with my mom and grandma. We would go camping in the summers, and I liked those little candy cigarettes. They were just sticks of sugar, basically. And my dad would go and get me a box from the camp store and bring them back to our little camper. I thought it was so cool. Birthdays, Christmases, Thanksgivings, we spent holidays cooking together and baking together. So three themes again for me were I enjoyed creating things, making something out of nothing. I enjoyed physical activity, especially in the summertime. And then the winter, of course, it was a lot colder, but we would sled ride. And then the third thing that I enjoyed was doing the first two things with family and friends, making memories, like being together and part of a community. Another revelation that occurred to me as I journaled all of the answers to these questions was that, wow, like God uniquely designed me with particular gifts and likes and interests. And I began to ponder deeper questions like, where does my unique personality and skill set fit into the world? What am I here for? How can I use everything that God gave me, all of my gifts and talents in the marketplace? Where in the marketplace can I serve and be me, like offer all of my gifts to their fullest? And if I move in the direction of things that bring me joy and use my unique gifts, how would that also benefit my community? How would that really bless the people around me for me to show up as me, powerfully me, authentically me, irreplaceably me? I didn't have answers for all these questions. I was just doing a lot of pondering. And then I started asking, what should I focus my time and attention on in this particular season? Life goes through seasons of enormous growth, seasons of planting, seasons of harvest, seasons of family, seasons of being more inward focused, seasons of being outward focused. No two seasons in life are alike, but I just wondered at that time in my life, what was going on and where should I focus my time and attention? I have 24 hours in a day. 8 of those, theoretically, I'm sleeping. Another 8 or so, I'm at a job working. With what little leftover time I have during the day, what should I be doing to move in the direction of applying these gifts and talents in the marketplace? And then I started to think if I was feeling this way, longing for a deeper connection to my purpose, was there other people who felt this way? I read a lot of books at this time. None of them really hit that deeper part of me. They were all helpful in a small way, but there was one book that came close, but there was still something missing from it. And there was something about the book that was unsettling in my spirit. And it too, like the other books, left me wanting for what I don't really know. So I kept just going inward and praying and asking God to show me. So at this point, I cobbled together my list of questions and the visualization exercises that I used, where I would prayerfully meditate on, what I felt like God was showing me, and into something that I think maybe others could benefit from this as well. I didn't have a name then, but two of my dear friends, Chelsea and Elkin, they said they would love for all three of us to do it together. So that's what we did. At that time, the three of us were working with a nonprofit organization to help them scale a program for high school students. And we all wholeheartedly believed in the mission of this organization. It is such a beautiful organization. That organization was designed to help students build resilience through trauma. We really enjoyed working with each other. We discovered that all of our gifts were complementary, and we enjoyed spending time together working for this nonprofit organization that we really, really believed in. In January of 2016, when I got back to Los Angeles from Christmas and New Year's, we all gathered in Elkin's living room on a really cold and damp Los Angeles morning. And when I say cold, I really mean like 50 degrees. Let's be real. Cold in Los Angeles is 50 degrees. So we had hot coffee, we had tea, we had fresh fruit and some nuts and other healthy snacks. We built a fire in her fireplace. We had our journals and our laptops and colored pens, cozy blankets, and Elkin's sweet, sweet dog named Love. We went through the whole program. And at that time, it didn't have a name. We spent the whole day and into the darkness journaling and sharing with each other. We had times of reflection where we would separate and go and answer a lot of questions, or do some visualization. And then we would come back and we would share and we would give feedback to each other. It was such a beautiful and uplifting time, very affirming in a lot of ways to do this with people who really know you and love your soul. So we met a few more times after that over the next couple of months. And both Chelsea and Elkin encouraged me that I needed to do something more formal with this sweet little half-baked potato that helped us zero in on what our deepest heart's desires were at the time. At the end of that day of journaling, the very first day that Chelsea, Elkin, and I met, we had to narrow down the list that we had each come up with. When we all helped each other narrow our list to the top 5, because, if we only have 24 hours in a day and 8 of those are sleeping and 8 or more are working, then with what little time you have left over, you can't focus on a dozen things. You have to really narrow that. So when we narrowed our respective lists to the top 5, which was actually hard, it felt freeing in a lot of ways. It forced us to go really deep into our hearts to discern, what is God wanting us to focus on right now? What is the center of the center? After we did that, Elkin went off the deep dive. She said, wow, this nonprofit organization that we love and adore and have been working on for the last number of months, that's not in my top 5. So I really need to step back from that. And Chelsea and I looked at each other a little dumbfounded, because we hadn't expected how freeing it was to get such clarity. And when Elkin got clarity, she let go of what wasn't in the top 5. She eased her way out of it, transitioned what she had been working on to Chelsea and I. And Chelsea and I looked at each other and said, okay, I guess it's the two of us then. Anyway, we met a few more times over the next couple of months, and what we had at the end of that was something very sweet. I don't know what it was. I called it a half-baked potato because that's what it felt like, but it was sweet. And Chelsea and Elkin both encouraged me that I really needed to do something more formal with this sweet half-baked potato that helped all three of us zero in on what our deepest heart's desires were at the time. So I took feedback from the two of them and made some edits. And while I knew I had something special, I didn't really know what it was. So I walked another friend in Los Angeles through the program over the phone. And then in May of 2016, my dear friend Amanda came to visit me in Los Angeles, and I walked her through this sweet little program of mine that still didn't have a name and still didn't know what it was, although I knew it was sweet and special. She too got clarity on what she should focus her time and attention on in that season of her life. At the time, she had just moved to Texas not long before. There were some things she was letting go of from her old season of life in the Washington, D.C. area, and some things that she really felt like she wanted to embrace and make space for. So when she got clear and started taking baby steps in that direction of her top 5, I was like, wow, okay. Chelsea, Elkin, and I and Amanda um, all had clarity on what we should focus on. So I know I had something that was really good, but just still don't know what at this time. And you'll hear from Chelsea, Elkin, and Amanda in later episodes. And then in June in 2016, I got a call from my older brother saying that my mom was not well. She had been diagnosed with pneumonia in both of her lungs and likely needed to go to the hospital. I will share in a later episode of what led up to this, but my mom passed away in June of 2016. And to say that I was not prepared for the sequence of events that unfolded in my life after that, including a move from Los Angeles back to the East Coast where I grew up to be near my family, was an understatement. I can't quite describe the trauma that my mom's death triggered and the healing journey that it ultimately took me on. A very long healing journey. We're going to address a lot of these topics in later episodes of the Dream Lab, but for now, I moved back to the East Coast in August of 2016 to be near my family because I was just heartbroken. The grief, I think, was overwhelming in a way that I wasn't prepared for. So when I moved back, I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do here in this city where I grew up? I had been accustomed to living in major metropolitan areas for the better part of my adult life, where there was always an outlet for my skills. So there wasn't really anything, any industry in particular that I could plug into. So I became a substitute teacher. I moved into my own apartment that had an extra bedroom. And while I was going to substitute teach every day, I would come home and work on, getting my things unpacked and setting up what I was going to do with my second bedroom. So I was talking to my friend Amanda about what I wanted to do with my additional room. I think I might want to create a little creative space with some indirect lighting, maybe, my computer desk, obviously, a comfy chair for quiet times and journaling, reading the Bible, a blanket. Amanda is actually a super talented designer. Like she could be an interior designer. She's got such a flair for, creating really beautiful spaces in a home. So she gave me a few ideas of her own and she kind of just offhandedly said, I love this whole idea, Christina. It's really like your dream lab. And we both paused in silence when we realized the Dream Lab is the perfect name for this sweet little program that I created. We loved it. We both were like, oh my goodness, that's the perfect name, the Dream Lab. What does the Dream Lab mean? Dream means anything most desirable or ideal. If you could create a life you loved, a life that feels complete and lacking nothing, what would that look like? Lab, of course, means any place, situation, or set of conditions conducive to experimentation, investigation, or observation. That's the actual definition from the dictionary. Any place, situation, or set of conditions conducive to experimentation, investigation, or observation. That's perfect. That is exactly what I have. That's what I created, this little workshop that I walked my friends through to help them gain clarity on what they should focus their time and attention on in this season. It's the Dream Lab. Dream meaning ideal, lab meaning you get to observe, you get to investigate, you get to experiment, you get to try things on and figure it out as you go. It doesn't have to be perfect. So that's what the Dream Lab is. The Dream Lab creates a safe, inspiring space for you and God to dream without limits what you most desire to be, do, and have in your life right now. The right now part is really important because I think a lot of us, we get so caught up in the someday I will do this, or someday I'll, buy a house. Someday I'll learn a new language. Whatever it is, fill in the blank. And we put it out into the future because life is so busy and crazy and chaotic right now. But the right now part is really important. So I'll say that again. The Dream Lab creates a safe, inspiring space for you and God to dream without limits what you most desire to be, do, and have in your life right now. Hey, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of The Dream Lab, your support would mean so much. Please subscribe and leave a rating or review, and share this episode with your family and friends. It was a pleasure to spend time with you in the Dream Lab. Until next time, bye for now.